All right, I think we're going to get started. Aloha, everyone. My name is Harrison Lum, and I'll be your moderator for this session titled Harbors Updated Construction and Post-Construction Programs. This session is being streamed concurrently to our virtual conference platform. At the end of the presentation, the speaker will have a few minutes to answer your questions. If any virtual attendees have questions, you can type it in the Q&A section and we'll answer it at the appropriate time. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for this session. Zhang is a professional environmental engineer at HDOT, Harbor Division Engineering Branch, Environmental Section. She is primarily responsible for developing and implementing comprehensive environmental compliance programs to satisfy the division's requirements for compliance with state and federal laws and department policies. Please help me welcome Joy.
Thank you, Harrison, for the introduction. Aloha, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, the return audience, and welcome the new ones. A successful program cannot be parted with each and everyone's support and positive participation. And as a majority of you have known, Harbors Division have recently gone through a consent decree with US EPA and DOH in terms of stormwater compliance. So significant improvement has been made to our both construction and post-construction program since then. So via this session, we'll be brushing through the major requirement by Harbors Division in terms of stormwater management during the construction and the post-construction phase. I'll take this as a caveat that we'll be sharing a ton of information during this presentation. When a construction project commences in place, pretty sure you have been often told that, oh, please ensure that all the BMPs are properly implemented to minimize or prevent the potential pollutants from entering our state waters. So clean water is of vital importance to our own use, as well as to the fishing and the tourism industries. And further on, it is our responsibility to protect the wildlife and including many only found here in Hawaii. Just a reckon on what we have experienced since March 2020, when the deadly virus swept around the globe. Stay home, stay safe mandates were executed at almost all the countries. And over the night, a lot of major industrial activities were put on pause. And as we slowed down, remarkable things started to change in the natural world. Cleaner airs and cleaner waters and animals starting to flourish in the ways we haven't seen in decades. So to continue to sustain in this world, we need to do our part to ensure that our harbor and coastal waters are clean for every living beings to enjoy. So here is the agenda for this presentation, and we'll start with the basic regulatory requirement and definitions, and then we will go through the project process at harbors. In particular, we'll discuss in depth about harbors construction site runoff control program and some common findings during our inspections. Last but not least, we will write through harbors post-construction program requirement and share some popular post-construction BMPs. The basics. So here is a quick rundown of our basic regulatory requirement at harbors, which include the Clean Water Act and the related CFR by feds, Hawaii Administrative Rules 11-54 and 11-55, and the related Hawaii revised statutes. And the 3 NPDES permit Harbors Division need to comply to as of today. So these regs and permits are the primary drivers for Harbor Stormwater Management Program, also known as SWAMP. The NPDES permit issued to harbors requires development, implementation, and the enforcement of our own swamp, covering the 6 minimum pillars listed on these slides. So today's training would be focused on the construction site runoff control and the post-construction stormwater management for new development and the redevelopment. So both program manuals are available online, and here is our web address. And below, you will be able to see the snippet from our web listing the manuals, checklist, forms tailored for Harbor's construction and post-construction program. And how exactly can a construction activity potentially impact the environment? The impacts can occur when the stormwater runoff carries pollutants from the construction site to nearby storm drains or the adjacent waterways. Now, once the stormwater has entered the storm drain system, it flows and it discharges directly to the adjoining state waters, for example, Honolulu Harbor. Therefore, it is essential to manage and mitigate the contact of rainwater with a potential source of pollutants before they enter the storm conveyance system. And one potential source of pollutants is from what we classify as illicit discharge, which is any non-stormwater discharge that pose a risk to the environment. An easy way to remember this is that only rain in the drain. So the pictures on this slide provide some examples of illicit discharge that should be eliminated, such as oil stains from a leaking vehicle, washed paint product, and sediment, etc. So some common pollutants from a construction site can include a sediment from a soil erosion and excavation, vehicle fluids from equipment used on site, chemicals and aggregates stored on site, and the wastes from a potable toilet, concrete washout, and just a littering. So sediment is one of the most common pollutants found in our waterways. It can be generated through surface water erosion or just in situ soil excavation. Construction project may have both short-term or long-term negative impact to the environment. Without proper BMP implementation, a significant amount of sediment can be discharged. That is about 35 to 45 tons of sediment per acres per calendar year versus 1 ton for a well-grassed area. So if not properly contained, the sediment may fill up storm drains and catch basins, which are designed to minimize the localized flooding. And excessive nutrients from the sediment can increase the algae growth. It can also cause the water to become turbid, preventing sunlight from reaching the coral and reducing the oxygen level, which may impact the marine life. If your project would disturb 1 acre or more, or is part of a large common plan of development or sale, it is very likely that your project would be subject to the NPDES program requirement, which is administered by the DOH. HR 11-55 Appendix C outlined the requirement for a regulated construction site. So first, no more than 30 days, no later than 30 days prior to the start of the construction, a notice of intent form C, or what we usually call the NOIC with a sweep, must be submitted to DOH via its e-permitting portal. This requirement is usually completed during the project design phase. And upon contract awarding, the contractor shall review and update the sweep and submit a copy to Harbors for review and a final acceptance. Then following the permit issuance, the project owner or the duly authorized representative must notify DOH Clean Water Branch no later than 7 calendar days before the start of the construction activities. All key members of the stormwater team need to be properly trained on the BMP installation, which includes, how you properly install it on site and how to maintain it to maintain its intended purpose. BMPs should be installed at the beginning of a construction and should be consistent with the BMP described in your sweep. And finally, once the construction has been completed and the disturbed soil has been fully stabilized, the duly authorized representative should submit a notice of transition to the DOH. Please keep in mind that all NPDES regulated construction projects under Harbor's jurisdiction are subject to not only Harbor's inspection, but also Harbor's, not subject to only to DOH inspection, but also Harbor's construction site runoff control inspection program. So, all right, starting with these slides, we will be brushing through the project forming and the execution process at the Harbors. So a typical project under Harbor's jurisdiction will follow the process shown on this slide, which includes project scoping, design, review, construction, and then followed by a long-term operation and maintenance if necessary. And we will be reviewing this process in detail in the next few slides with a focus on the environmental requirement. So during the design phase, the scope of the project will be finalized by the design engineers, and the relevant environmental requirement will be assessed and identified. When necessary, a pre-design meeting will be held. All permits and applicable Harbors forms should be completed by the design engineer. And for non-exempt project, the design engineer should need to complete either notification form for project less than 1 acre or a construction design and a post-construction BMP plan checklist together with a post-construction stormwater mitigation plan for projects subject to NPDES NOIC. So on this slide, it shows what this notification form for project site disturbing less than 1 acre form looks like. And here is a snippet of Harbor's construction site design review checklist, just to give you an idea how it looks like. And both forms are available on Harbor Stormwater website. So following the completion of the design phase, the project will then go out for bid through public solicitation. Following the selection, the construction contractor would then work on updating and finalizing the sweep based upon their specific information and the construction means and methods. And the updated sweep shall be submitted to Harbor's construction project manager or the project engineer, who will then provide the sweep to Harbor's environmental section for review. Upon acceptance, the contractor can commence installation of the BMP, and which must be inspected and deemed sufficient before any other construction activities are allowed to start on the site. So if a project disturbs 1 acre or more and require a NPDES permit, the sweep need to be prepared fulfilling the requirement of HAR 11-55 Appendix C. So BMP are required to be implemented during the construction phase in order to minimize the impact to the environment. BMP is a structured device or system or a procedure to practice that is used to mitigate the discharge of potential stormwater pollutants, such as stabilized construction entrance and regular sweeping to remove accumulated sediment, and also the storm drains equipped with a fabric filter and berm it around using a biosocks to minimize the pollutants from discharging directly into the ocean or the drain. Keep in mind that the storm drain protections is usually considered the last line of defense, and additional BMPs should be installed to assist in preventing an illicit discharge from occurring. So Harbors has adopted the City County of Honolulu BMP manual for construction, which provide information about the BMP design details that should be followed. So the BMP listed here should be incorporated for all projects, regardless of the size when applicable. Our program is to include a list of BMPs on site for a project that disturbs 1 acre or more. Some of the categories include erosion and sediment control BMPs listed on these slides, if they're practical to your project. And also some other additional controls like a wind erosion control, stabilized entrance, and some other non-stormwater management like water conservative practices and vehicle and equipment washing, filling equipment, and also the waste management, which may include material delivery and storage, stockpile management, solid waste management, and spill prevention and control. So if you're working on a roadway paving project, please ensure to implement the BMPs listed on this slide and the next, such as do not pave when rain or predicted rainfall, and make sure you burn up all the storm drain inlet and also the manholes. And also covering the coal mix asphalt. And also something like, you want to protect a stockpile with a cover if that's practical. And also if you intend to leave the stockpile on site like over a day. Okay, next we'll discuss Harbor's stormwater BMP inspections as well as Harbor's expectations during the active construction phase. So Harbor's stormwater management program requires inspections of non-exempt construction sites. So these are conducted to identifying potential or active discharge of pollutants and ensure the deficiencies are corrected proactively to stay in compliance and to avoid being cited by the regulatory agencies. And all Harbor's inspections include initial, recurring, and final inspections, which are to be conducted by a qualified inspectors. So the purpose of the initial inspection is to ensure that all applicable site BMPs have been installed and any potential deficiency noted during the inspection must be corrected before the contractor can commence any further construction activities. So once the construction work has started, Harbor will conduct recurring inspection for the duration of the project. This will occur once every 2 weeks during the wet season, which is from October to March, and once every 2 months from April to September, which we consider the dry season. So the deficiencies and potential violations noted during the recurring inspections may lead to an enforcement action if not corrected promptly. And usually a copy of our inspection report will be provided to the contractors within 5 calendar days. And the final inspection will occur once the construction work is complete or the site is permanently stabilized. At the same time, this inspection also serves to ensure that all the permanent BMPs are properly installed per specification. So deficiencies or potential violations noted during these final inspections must be addressed as well before the completion of the project. Final payment can be withheld until all corrective actions are complete. Fortunately, we haven't have the need to do that as of today. So we thank all the contractors for working with us. So Harbors does exempt certain types of project from inspections. So this project usually have been shown to have minimal impact to the environment, such as some minor land disturbance on the single lot, some straightforward post, pole, sign, fencing installation, some utility repair works, and parking lot, driveways, and paved surface repair, and some other maintenance activities. Okay, starting from these slides, we'll be discussing some common findings noted during our inspection. So the first one is the BMP was not available or updated timely. So the BMP plan would provide basic information about the project site and identifying the BMP that should be implemented on the job site. It should be promptly updated when necessary and must be kept on set and at an easily accessible location to make it readily available to on-site workers and also the inspectors. Doesn't matter it's from DOH or from the DOT. Stabilize the construction entrance. So the tracking of sediment onto the adjacent public road is something that is easily visible both to inspectors and to the public. And it can easily be carried into the nearby storm drain by the stormwater runoff if not cleaned up promptly. Therefore, it is important that the construction entrance have proper BMPs installed, and it's more important to maintain regularly and when needed. So for a typical stabilized construction entrance, it should consist of minimum of 50 by 30 feet and covered with a 3 to 6 inches diameter aggregate over the geotextile fabric. Maintenance may need to be conducted regularly through the life of the project to remove the accumulated sediment and to keep the aggregate from settling down. Silt fence can be used to control the sediment and airborne dust from leaving a construction site. However, they must be properly installed and maintained. If not well maintained, the sediment may be carried off-site and result in an illicit discharge. So generally speaking, the silt fence should be properly installed and maintained by setting the post on the downstream side of the fence every 6 to 8 feet. And the fabric should be stretched tight and the fence should be embedded in the ground approximately 6 inches to secure the bottom of the fence. And the goal of the silt fence is to hold the sediment-laden water so as to keep the sedimentation behind the fence. Maintenance will be required to remove the cumulative sediment on the silt fence when it has reached 1/3 the height of the barrier, such as the biosocks. So on this slide, it shows sometimes how a deteriorated composed biosocks can actually contribute pollutants if not replaced or repaired promptly. And basic rules using a biosocks to burn your job site include make sure you're placing it place it on the ground and make sure it is in close contact with the ground surface. And the end of the socks must overlap a minimum of 6 inches. And the end of the berm should be turned up the slope to aid in holding the or containing the sediment. Accumulated sediment must be removed when it reaches 1/3 the height, the berm, and replace and repair damaged sections promptly. Erosion control measures can be used on the site to stabilize a disturbed soil until vegetation can be established as well. So the mat must be properly anchored. This involves the trenching in the mat at least 6 inches at the top of the slope and overlapping sections of the mat by 2 to 3 inches and stapling the mat every 3 feet. So filter fabric can be used to contain the potential runoff pollutants and prevent them from discharging into the storm drain system. This is considered the last line of defense in terms of pollution prevention. And saw cutting of a concrete will generate dust and fine particles that can be easily carried away in stormwater runoff. In the instant pictures here, the construction workers were conducting saw cutting operation without using a vacuum system to collect the fine materials for proper disposal. And all concrete waste must be properly contained. This can be accomplished by designating a container on site and removing the debris once the water has been evaporated. Additionally, a cover may need to be added over the container when the rain is forecasted to prevent the contained wastewater from overflowing. And spill and the vehicle leaks are a common source of pollutants on a construction site. As shown on these photos, petroleum products can be easily carried away, and all the vehicles and equipment should be regularly checked for leaks. And if a leak is observed, and ensure use a drip pan or some other containment to contain the spill. And all construction workers should be trained on proper spill response. Spill kits must be kept on site and be properly stocked. So spills should be immediately reported to Harbor's environmental section and also Harbor's project engineer or the project manager. Stockpiles of aggregate materials must be properly contained if they are to be stored for more than a day. And make sure you position them away from the waste, from waterways, such as a drainage, swell, storm drain, stream, or some other surface water to prevent the material from being carried away in a stormwater discharge. And improper disposal of paint waste and the painting equipment clean out can introduce pollutants to the stormwater as well. So make sure you install proper BMPs, and such as try to mix and store the paint within a secondary containment and dispose of the paint waste promptly. So hazardous materials must also be stored properly on site as well. And in particular, liquid containers of 55 gallons and above would require a secondary containment. They should also be inspected regularly to ensure that they're in good condition and properly labeled or marked. And it is highly recommended that if you have to store some hazardous material on site, make sure they're stored in the covered areas to minimize its exposure to the stormwater. Show on this slide are some common findings related to the housekeeping and the waste management. Trash and debris throughout the site can be picked up by the stormwater and carried away. And make it a regular check at your site to clean up debris at the end of each working day. And when it comes to solid waste management, some of the good practice include remove the debris from the site and place them in watertight dumpster, and make sure you locate your dumpster at least 50 feet away from the waterways. And make sure you segregate the storage of hazardous waste away from other recycled items. Throughout the construction phase, enforcement actions can be implemented where necessary to ensure the corrective actions would be completed. Enforcement will reference the harbor's swamp, the construction contractor document, and the Hawaii revised statutes, and HAR if necessary. So once a regulatory agency such as DOH begins their enforcement, there may be specific penalties associated with each violation that are compounded each day the violation occurs. So the potential for penalties shown on this slide can be avoided if all parties working on the construction project follows all the necessary requirements. All right, we'll do a quick rundown of Harbor's construction programs. The post-construction BMPs are of equal importance because they will continue to address the potential stormwater pollutants long after construction project has been completed. For example, if a construction project is for a parking lot, then a green parking lot, such as porous pavers or central grassy swale, which can function to filter the stormwater runoff, would be considered a permanent BMP. Another important thing is that if you do include a post-construction BMP in your project, it should be coupled with an operation and maintenance plan to ensure that it continues to function effectively for the site of its intended use. So at Harbors, for a post-construction BMPs must be considered and evaluated for a project disturbing land of 1 acre or more. So however, there are some exceptions, such as a maintenance project, a re-roofing project. A project will mainly focus on the interior renovation. Design engineers would submit the permanent post-construction BMP plan checklist and a post-construction stormwater mitigation plan to Harbor's environmental section for review. So here is what our permanent post-construction BMP plan checklist looked like. So the permanent post-construction mitigation plan, or sometimes we call it a PSMP, begins by completing an existing drainage study of the area. And the designer then identifies the source of pollutants that may be present during the regular site use, then following the completion of the construction. The designer would also include the drainage study, the chemical or potential concern, and a discussion on selected post-construction BMP that will address this particular concern. Once all this information is gathered, they would be compiled into a PSMP. So this table provides some more guidance on the type of a type of the potential pollutant that may be expected based on the land use. For example, if the project involving an industrial development like a container yard, then the anticipated pollutant of concern could include like oil, grease, sediment, and dissolved metals. So the type of post-construction BMPs are divided into 3 main categories as low impact development, which must be considered and evaluated first, then followed by the source control BMP. And if either are not feasible, then a treatment control BMPs must be evaluated. Designers could refer to the City County Honolulu guidance when developing the PSMP, in particular the BMP manuals for construction, the stormwater BMP guide, the rules relating to storm drainage studies, and their standards. All this information available online at Harbor Stormwater website. So as a rule of thumb, volume-based BMPs must capture 1 or 1.5 inches of storm water. And for the flow-based BMPs must capture and treat 0.4 inches of rains per hour. So on this slide, it shows some popular BMPs that we have observed around the world. The first one is conserve the natural area, soils, and the vegetations. It's not hard to understand. So this BMP is only practical in areas where there is existing vegetation and it should be marked off during the construction if practical. The bioswales meet the objective of both retaining the stormwater on site and providing the treatment. A planter's box. They are considered a bioretention treatment control measures. and are completed contained within an impermeable structure with an under drain. And as stormwater passes through the planter soil, the pollutants are filtered, absorbed, and biodegraded by the soil and the plant. Hydrodynamic separators are designed to treat stormwater runoff as it leaves the site. So this types of system works well in area where the solid waste expected, such as a public area and a loading dock, and suitable for location with relatively high groundwater levels. Last but not the least, a filter fabric. It is ideal for areas where a littering can be common, and it can also be fitted with a different media to remove the targeted pollutants. So harbors have instituted its stormwater management program to protect our coastal waters and harbor waters and to achieve the compliance with environmental regulations. And this is now a standard business practice for construction and should be followed by all parties involved. So as part of the takeaway, please remember that all projects will be reviewed prior to start. A project that are of 1 acre or more must consider including post-construction BMPs if feasible. And inspections can be a great tool to identify problematic areas before resulting in accelerated enforcement. Contractors should implement BMPs with the goals of keeping the potential pollutants on site to preventing the contaminants of the receiving waters to avoid fines. So all parties should be familiar with construction document, the harbor swamp requirement, and the city county's BMP manual for construction and their stormwater BMP guide document. All right, I think that will conclude my presentation for today. And resonating with the theme for this conference, let's work together to protect the environment and to protect our harbor waters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy. So we're going to open up for questions and answers portion of this session. If anyone in the audience has a question, we have a microphone going around and you can ask via that. If you're joining us virtually, can you please type in your questions now and then we'll get to it when we can.
Okay, so the first question is, how is Harbors notifying and citing violations by contractors?
It depends on what kind of violation. If it's environmentally related, we do have an enforcement plan in place we can follow. So usually we're trying to work with the contractors first. That is always our first intent. We're trying to have it resolved at the earliest stage as possible. So if we really have to, can accelerate the case, we do have an enforcement plan to follow.
And then our second question is, just to confirm, all paving and resurfacing projects do not require that disturbed areas less than 1 acre don't require stormwater pollution prevention plans within the harbors, correct?
For all the paving project, depend on whether it's subject to NPDES NOIC permit or not. For sure, they will need a sweep or a BMP plan in place.
Then one last question, in regards to cold plain material for asphalt paving, to what extent does it need to be covered if the pile is very distant from any water source and is below the regulator requirements in TCLP testing?
So if, like to say you have active pile, you have to use it or taken from, on a very frequent basis. If you're not intend to leave the stockpile like over a day or overnight, then you don't need to cover it. You just use it as you can, and then remove it off the site end of the working day. However, if you intend to leave your stockpile on site like over a day or for some other extended time, you should consider cover it. It's better to do your part of work to avoid any further enforcement, because once you reach that point, it usually costs more. It's not just effective for the project. Yes, that's our goal of the program, to bring everyone into compliance during, the execution of construction project.
All right, thank you. I think we're out of time, but thank you again, Joy. This now concludes our session. Thank you for attending. The next session will begin at 10:15. Please help yourselves to more refreshments outside in the courtyard. And please visit the vendor booths during your break. We also wanted to let you know that the speakers are available before and after sessions if you need to talk to them as well. But again, thank you.